This says, today I am grateful. Bob gave that to me at one point after I preached a sermon, and I said that there's a question to the answer to the question, how are you today?
Grateful.
So I'm going to ask you, how are you today?
Grateful.
Okay. How are you today?
Grateful.
Okay, good. That's the theme of our scripture today, is gratitude, and we just heard Manette read that. Do you ever think that God maybe sometimes a little bit has a pretty twisted sense of humor? Think of the worst mood you have been in recently. I was in the foulest mood this past week. My inner landscape was as dreary and dismal as the weather was outside. Everything felt negative and hard. I could only see the half of the glass that was empty. Don't you just hate that? I mean, do you ever get like that? Anyway, this happens now and then. I panic a little. I think, oh, where's all this negativity coming from? Am I getting a cold? Is it seasonal affective disorder? A bout of depression? I can't seem to talk my way out of it or pray my way out of it. I try to reset my brain like John McDougall, who gets up every morning and tells his alcoholic brain that he's an alcoholic and he needs to not drink. I try to tell my little negative brain that the glass is half full, not half empty, and maybe I should notice those things during the day. But sometimes, and I do, I try to turn my life and will over to God and surrender my negative thinking. I try to think of all I have to be thankful for. I really try. And then God's ultimate humor arises. The passage this week is about gratitude. And that gratitude is impossible to experience when you have a chip on your shoulder. Ever notice that? Our text today hints at the fact that it is difficult. Gratitude is not always easy. It is not always natural or automatic. In fact, in today's story, only one person out of 10 who are healed by Jesus thinks to return to say thank you. 1 out of 10. Not a very good average. Perhaps it's closer to the average of times we even notice we have something to be grateful for, let alone remembering to voice it. In this story, we find Jesus coming upon 10 lepers. These lepers live on the borderland between Samaria and Jerusalem. There is no land there. They are living on the edges of society because they have been deemed untouchable, unacceptable by the authorities. Reminds me of a sweet couple who came into the church the other day just to warm up and charge their phones. They were living on the streets, and it was a damp, brutal day, and they were cold and wet. And they came in and they asked if they could charge their phones. I looked out and I saw they were sleeping on the couch, and I thought about how God must look at us when we're sleeping, as parents look at their children, and how I have so much to be thankful for. Jesus comes across 10 men living on the margins because they have a disease that shows, a disease of the skin that causes blisters and pus, a disease people are afraid to go near. They don't want to catch it, and the fear is that it is highly contagious. When they see Jesus, they call out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Jesus' response is really interesting, and at first it seems a little bit out of character, because Jesus usually touches those who the world calls untouchable. He's usually the one to reach out to those who no one else will reach out to. But he doesn't do that this time. Instead of embracing them, he tells them to go and show themselves to the priests. What's that about? Interesting command. As it turns out, he has already healed them. He sends them to the priests because they are the ones sanctioned to declare them once again clean, worthy and acceptable to rejoin the community. They are okayed by the priests to return to their homes and to the temple. We are told in this story that on the way to the temple to see the priests, they are already healed. But only one of them notices. One of them looks at his skin, which is suddenly smooth and without blemish. One of them runs back to Jesus and throws himself at his feet, thanking him, prostrating himself. That means he throws himself down on his front. To him, Jesus says, "Your faith has made you well." The word he uses for well does not only mean that he has been healed, he has been made whole. This word actually means he has been saved. Not surprising, the one who returns is the Samaritan. We might call him a person with a dual diagnosis. Not only is he a leper, therefore untouchable, but he is of a racial class that is deemed unacceptable and untouchable. The priests wouldn't have restored him to the community. He knows what it is to be doubly rejected. And so great is his joy that he runs back to Jesus and falls at his feet in thanksgiving. This is our story, friends. We all know there is a difference between sobriety and recovery. How many times have we heard tell of people who stopped drinking or stopped drugging or stopped engaging in any addictive behavior, but never really found recovery? Through force of will, we may be able to abstain from negative behavior, but that is not the same as being saved, being restored to the person God created us to be. What's the name of that song, Fred?
You chose a life you choose, or a life chose you.
Are you living the life you choose, or the life that chose you? Are you living the life that God chose for you? Here, you don't need to be anything other than the person God created you to be. And who did God create you to be? God created you to be grateful. Those who have found recovery from addiction know it. Without real gratitude as a daily practice, we will not maintain our recovery. We will lapse into negative thinking and feeling, whether we are using a substance or not. But we can practice gratitude, and before long, we will begin to feel it. And when you feel gratitude, it's impossible to have a chip on your shoulder. I am grateful to say that my gratitude did come back this week. Lucky for me, I was forced to live into this text and reminded that gratitude is not an option for me, it is a requirement. When I get lost in my own despair, I have tools, and so do you. And if we act as if we are grateful long enough, the feeling will return. And it's like being saved all over again. Actually, one of the things that saved me was that Danielle asked me to think of my favorite poem about Thanksgiving and being thankful. And so yesterday, as I was out on my walk in the morning, in the snow, in the nail snow. Now, this is just a little sidetrack here, but if I learned to be thankful for snow, my cup would be half full a lot. But yesterday, as I was walking through that slushy, damp morning, I felt it come back, and I said out loud, I thank you, God, for this amazing day. For the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today. And this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and of wings and of the gay, great happening, illimitably. Thanks be to God. Amen.